Good morning. All right, got my tasty beverage and ready to rock. Well, what we're going to do this morning is get the additional shots with Asher whipped into shape. And I should probably, let me look at my stream settings. And I'm gonna add to the title, and let's talk story development. I'm gonna add that to the title today because I think it's an important. It's kind of an interesting coincidence. I was going to talk a little bit today about story development in the context of the current scene, because there is a story point that is brought up in this exchange between Asher and the king and Golek, which has a problem. And I wanted to bring this up because if you're going to develop a cartoon or any show, movie, whatever, these are the sorts of things that you need to become aware of, recognize them when they raise their ugly little heads, and be able to solve them. Okay, very practical problem solving. So I'll get to what the problem was in this scene in a bit, but first I'm going to answer Sententari's question. Okay, so this is what Sententari, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, posted this comment. And I like Sententari because he doesn't tend to show up here on the live stream in the chat, but he tends to, it's clear that he's watching the videos, and then he tends to give very, very verbose, well thought out comments, criticisms, opinions. So it's good stuff. So I wanted to read this question and see if I can answer it properly. He says, "Oh no." Okay, now let's stop right there. The reason he's saying "oh no" is because we have this prickly relationship, obviously, between Golek and Asher. Okay, so Asher is essentially a wise man who every once in a while seems to show up in the king's court with prophetic utterances that don't usually bode well for the king, or for Golek for that matter. And Golek is essentially the king's chief advisor, kind of analogous to what's his face in Aladdin, the vizier. His name escapes me, but you know, he's an advisor to the king who's also manipulating the king. He's the bad guy. Now, this is different than the situation in Aladdin because the king in our story is not a buffoon, and certainly is not the father of the girl. Okay, so the parallels kind of stop early, but anyway, so Asher comes to the palace, and the prickly relationship is interrupted to a degree by the fact that we have this wink. Okay, so let me play that. So Golek's basically like, "To what do we owe this visit?" he says sarcastically, and he says, "Well, it's always a pleasure to stand in the presence of the king." And then the king chuckles. Okay, so let's leave it at that. Taken in isolation, Sententari's comment was, "Oh no, I gotta admit that so far, knowing what I know, I come out on the exact opposite end of Valerie," which is my partner Valerie. She thought the wink was a nice touch. Okay. Probably not exactly the most helpful situation for you when two commenters go in the exact opposite direction, but here's my personal impression reasoning. How is the wink going to go down with these two, Gollum and the king? Now he's saying Gollum, it's actually Golek, Golech, so he's pretty close. Morning, Dirt. Yep, you're first. At this stage of watching the show, do we know the characters well enough to exclude the possibility that the king might read it as Formally, he needs to address me, the king, but he winks at Gollum or Golek. But okay, let's assume it universally gets interpreted as the wink being directed at the king, since Asher does turn his head. And by the way, Centauri, that it's with the king, even though, I mean, obviously Golek knows him really well as well. So let's keep going. But okay, let's assume it universally gets interpreted as the wink being directed at the king, since Asher does turn his head. Isn't the wink a little too familiar in this case? Kind of undermining the very reason why he winks by signaling me too am not overly impressed by the authority of the king. I gotta say, I really like the subtle and prickly way he was throwing shade at Gollum before. Is it because I'm lacking context here? And my answer was completely. These are great comments and interesting ideas, but absolutely, totally lacking context. And that's perfectly normal, because Centauri hasn't read the entire script and doesn't know the backstory, much less the entire epic of that's to be spread over many episodes that will unfold, where these relationships are a key part of, you know, of what we're going to see unfold. Now, so there, as I said at the beginning here, there is a problem. But the problem isn't the wink, and the problem isn't Asher being overly familiar with the king. So let me answer Centauri's question more completely this way. What we have, if we go back to the backstory. So in other words, I literally edited this down just last week because it bothered me that getting through the backstory to seeing 15, 16-year-old Mel, the main character, was taking 4 minutes. And I felt it needs to happen by 2 minutes and 30 seconds. Okay? Now, for some people, that would be a real problem, a real discouraging situation. For me, it's not. As a writer, I know 100% of the time that if there's a story or an editorial problem, I know it can be solved. It always can be solved, and usually the solutions to the real problems that are potentially harming your story actually turn out to make the story better. And it's hard to explain why, but I think the reason is that creativity is largely a function of limitations, and when you got limits, you have to be creative to solve the problems. So the beginning of the story got chopped down from 4 minutes to 2.5. But in that first 2.5 minutes, we essentially establish who the bad guy is right here within where we at. We're 30 seconds into it, and we've established that Golek is the bad guy. And he basically goes on a rampage of destruction where he is kind of rubbing out a few key people in the palace while grooming the young, I guess you'd say, prince. The problem is that you have these two brothers, and the older, when the parents die, the older brother becomes king, obviously, but it's the younger brother that Golek sees as being his opportunity for power and position. Okay, so he's got to get rid of the older brother too. So it's a real mess. It's a real mess for Golek. Well, what we see in the backstory, so again, 1 minute into the show, is that Golek, all of a sudden, this is the first time we see Asher. Now, ostensibly, I would think that probably in the first 2.5 minutes of the show, probably Asher will wind up being the narrator. I expect it will be Asher's show, in a sense, as opposed to Melchizedek. Melchizedek being the main character, the young child that Asher raised. Okay? We haven't even begun to explain why Asher is raising this kid. You know, why does this old wise man, shaman kind of guy, why does he have a child? There's a very good answer to that question. We just don't know it yet, and it hasn't been revealed yet. So we'll save that one for another time. But the point here is that you got these fairly young guys, okay? And this is portrayed in such a way that the presence of Asher is a known quantity. So we see it right here in the behavior of the guards. When Asher shows up, I threw this into the story because I thought it was important. When Asher shows up, the guards of all people say, "It's Asher, the holy man. Show respect." And that one shot right there, that is 5 seconds of show. Okay? That 5 seconds right there is enormously important to understanding who Asher is in relationship to the crown. Because he is the holy man. He's the guy who lives out on the edge of town. Nobody really knows him that well. The only time we see him is when he comes into town, and he does one of two things. He either goes and gives bad news to the king, or he sets up a tent and feeds the poor. So he's like this maybe religious guy who does good works, but he's a bit of a mystery. Okay? And because he's a bit of a mystery, you could surround the guy in a way, I'm expanding here a bit, but to a degree, he's a guy who's surrounded probably by a certain amount of superstition, and, well, let's follow that thread through. So here in the backstory that's all compressed into a very short period of time, we get this first instance of Asher coming in and making ostensibly prophetic proclamations to the king. Well, that's very important because he's going to do it again later. And we want to establish that this is a pattern that we've seen. And in a way, it's kind of elegant in the sense that when he does it the second time, it hasn't happened for many years. Asher's been kind of glaringly absent for a while. Okay. Now, the exact time frames are a little bit fluid. It's not really spelled out, but one would assume, because we don't know for sure that Asher hasn't come and done this multiple times in between the two that we see. We don't know that. So it could be Asher is taking the position that you, the king, need to be good. Now, I'm not going to get into what the actual dialogue is, because truthfully, the dialogue doesn't favor Golek. It basically amounts to, "Hey, king, there's a rat in the kingdom." And that's about as far as it goes. And you kind of need to get rid of the rats if you want to have a clean house, is basically the message here. I won't go into the exact dialogue. It doesn't matter. But that's basically the message. Golek's no dummy. He knows he's the rat. Okay? But then what Golek does is tries to dismiss it. These are the lunatic ramblings of the town whack job. But this is concerning to the king, the young king, because he doesn't see Asher that way. He knows, like the rest of the community does, that Asher is a real benefit to the community. He is the guy that comes in and feeds the poor. He is kind of the symbol of, I don't want to say religiosity, but he's the symbol of maybe a higher level of, spiritualism or morality or whatever you want to call it. He's well liked as well. The king likes Asher. Golek only doesn't like Asher. He doesn't dislike him personally, really. He just knows that whenever Asher comes around, his proclamations tend to not favor Golek's evil plans. And it's annoying that this guy's, think about it, this guy, it's really annoying to think that this kind of prophet dude maybe has inside information that, that no one else has, that could reveal him for the schnook that he is, right? You see what I'm saying? So anyway, so that's the backstory. This all happens in the first 2 minutes of the show. And then all of a sudden we get a plague and a drought and famine. And so what Golek does is immediately blames it on Asher. It's Asher's doing. But how? He feeds the poor. He takes care of orphans. How is it possible that Asher did this? Well, meanwhile, Golek is whispering to the younger brother and convinces him to engage in a coup to steal the crown. And in fact, he does that, as you can see in the montage. Okay, so what we have is a situation where finally, 2.5 minutes into the show, Golik has gotten his chess pieces all moved into position. Okay? That's the backstory, and importantly, Asher's still around. So when we go to this 2.5 minute point where we're finally meeting the main character, we're going to have a title on the screen, I would say, that says, you know, many years later or 15 years later, something like that. Okay, so what's the actual, let's jump, we'll come back to this point. I'm actually going to move the marker. I'm going to put a marker here so we can come back to it. So getting back to Centauri's question, what he was objecting to was the idea that Asher's going to come into the kingdom. You know, he's just this poor little wise man guy who comes in, and Golik is like, "Oh, it's been a long time. What brings you here?" kind of thing. And Asher's like, "Well, it's always a privilege to stand in the presence of the king." So, to answer his question specifically, he definitely is turning his attention from Golik, who from Asher's point of view is on the right, and the king is on the left. Okay, so everything, you need to flip it in your head because obviously we're looking at Asher. But so he's looking at Golik, and interestingly, I will say that for Centauri's question, it's interesting that Asher turns his head the opposite direction to the way he's looking. Okay, so that might be a little confusing. His head is oriented toward the king, which is the more respectful thing, but his eyes are on Golik. Okay, and then he turns to Golik, but he's looking at the king, and then he gives the wink. Well, again, the point is, this guy right here is this guy. It's him. It's the young, opportunistic king. Asher's been around ever since he could remember. Ever since he was 5 years old, there's always been this guy Asher who comes around. He's been part of his life in a sense. And who knows what memories he might have of Asher, actually, from when he was a little kid. But they could be very positive memories. Those are story beats we could come back to downstream if there was a good reason to do so. So the wink is, in fact, absolutely important because it tells the audience what's right. Now, Centauri's comment is based on not having all that context, so he's seeing this action in isolation, and I agree with him. In isolation, it's overly familiar. In context, it's perfect, actually. It tells you in one moment so much about how Asher sees the king. He sees the king as a kid, actually, as a young man, an inexperienced man who probably, for reasons we haven't actually seen play out in the story yet, the king probably has a good bit of respect for Asher. And again, he does play a valuable role in the community. So the king's reaction is perfectly important as well, which is that he chuckles. The king totally gets the fact that Asher is poking Golik. He gets it, and he thinks it's funny. And of course, Golik's in the background, you know, seething about it. Well, why is that important? Now, if you were going to really sit and think about this for a while, if you kind of knew the whole backstory, it's actually a really interesting thing that, for me, begs this question. Why? Golik is absolutely the bad guy, okay? This guy is the villain. However, is there a basis upon which, at some point in the future, we could create an episode where we actually explore why Golik is, in fact, a sympathetic character? And I would say, absolutely. Why? The reason he's such a scheming guy is because he's the second in he's the right-hand man of the king. But short of a major military coup with strong popular support, short of that, literally upending the kingdom, short of that, Golek is, in fact, only the top slave. Okay? Yeah, he's the top guy, but he's the top slave. And he was born into that, and he can never be the king. So all of his schemings, I've kind of related him to Dathan in the Ten Commandments, because Dathan was a real snaky character. I actually based the character on Edward G. Robinson playing Dathan in the Ten Commandments, because I thought that character was really interesting because it didn't matter the top guy. He could only cozy up to the top guy. So I find that to be an interesting thing that would be worthy of exploration. So anyway, the short answer, I think this long answer is really important. By the way, I'll tell you what the problem is. The actual problem in this scene is that when Asher comes in to speak to the king again, the issue that he brings up is the punitive taxes. And the reason that's a problem is that it's a real disservice to your audience if you bring up a story point in order to create a tension or a conflict where you didn't first lay the groundwork for that problem. Because then it's like you're just grabbing something out of thin air and pasting it onto your story to make your story work. And that's a real, that's bad writing. That's bad writing. And so I had a case of arguably bad writing here. Easy to solve. Very easy to solve. But it needs to be solved. And here's how I solved it. When I go right back here to the 2.5 minute point when the story starts, the first thing we see is now, remember, Asher just brought bad news to the king, and Golek is blaming the drought on Asher. Well, 15 years later, this drought is still going on, and the people are poor, and here's Asher still doing his thing, but he's an old man now, and he's feeding the people. So what I did was I took this shot right here, and instead of the woman simply thanking Asher for the food, she says, I just added one line of dialogue where she says, I can't remember the exact line, but basically what she says is, I hate to ask for it, but the king's taxes are so tough, we need the help. That's not the line, but that's basically the spirit of it is we're so glad you're here to help. If it wasn't for the darn king's taxes, this wouldn't be a problem. We wouldn't even need to be asking for help. That's the vibe. I don't remember what the exact line was that I wrote, and I may revise it a little bit. But by taking this one shot and expanding it by basically giving it 5 extra seconds, that 5 seconds allows us to establish in the mind of the audience that in addition to the drought and famine, we also have the problem that the king is opportunistically imposing taxes, and arguably this is sociopolitically and economically this is overly simplistic. Okay, I would rather delve into a little bit more nuance of it in terms of how it would actually work. But the simple story is that the king is enriching himself at the expense of the people through taxation when they're all suffering. So it's kind of like in Robin Hood, same situation you had in Robin Hood, right? So if we don't establish that the taxes are at least an issue, then you'd go forward here and you'd say, well, okay, it's okay that the prophet comes and, and croaks to the king about whatever's wrong in the kingdom, but why taxes? Why that particular issue? Well, this 5 seconds that I added to the show yesterday actually solved a lot of problems. Okay, because by introducing the issue of taxes, what's funny is I got to the end of the scene, and it gives me a perfect excuse for why Asher says, when we go to black here, it's been in the script for a long time that what Asher says to Mel is, you know, it might be time for me to go pay the king a visit after all. And you're going, well, why? Why out of the blue do you get on it in the script? The expansion of it has been in the script for a while. I just didn't have the rationale quite laid out. So the expansion of it is basically that what is that the poor is not the problem. You know, it'd be kind of like if the argument, if you're going to follow this through as an argument, which it does in the script, but I'm not going to go back and recap the script right now. But basically the argument is, you know, is Asher, you do what you can to help the poor, and we do what we can to help the poor. You help the people your way. The king helps the people his way. That is almost verbatim Golik's line. But the point is that it isn't the poor that are the problem in this particular case. It's actually the landowners. It's actually the people that are doing okay, the middle class, if you will. Because what's happening is, what the king's actually doing is he's taxing the landowners, and then when they can't pay their taxes, he's annexing their land. So he's not only taking the wealth out of the community, but he's also gobbling up the land itself. The problem with that, just in case you care about where the story goes, the problem with that is that the land is essentially worthless, actually, because of the drought. And so the very next thing that happens in the story is that Golik suggests to the king that if they were to connect the two families where the rain still falls, up in the Northlands where the drought isn't going on, if we were connected to them, that land would be a lot more valuable. Okay? Well, okay, but how are you going to accomplish that? Well, what Golik suggests is a marriage, obviously. I mean, that's kind of the way you do that typically. And the marriage would be between the prince, his son, and the daughter of this wealthy landowner from the north who comes down into their land to sell crops all the time. This woman, Carliana. Well, this is the whole gist of the story. They're plotting to marry the prince off for political gain, but what the king doesn't realize is that the woman who's the mother of the girl getting married is in fact Golik's cousin, a distant cousin. So this whole arrangement is actually right under the king's nose, is in fact a plot to give Golik a claim to the throne. Hugely important. And without that, Golik really doesn't have much, except that he can always be the head slave. Okay? So how it actually translates into stealing the crown is a whole other issue, but so this is, of course, Carliana now telling Tianara that she's about to be married off. Okay? And so you got this really, I find it to be quite fun, intermingling of these characters who are all stuck in different situations, and when Tianara ultimately encounters Melchizedek, she doesn't like him. She doesn't know him. They're like oil and water. I've actually considered changing the name of the show to, believe it or not, I'm just completely spitballing creatively. But I'll show you this. I'll just open up my paint, and this may make sense. So I thought, what if there was this really mysterious title? This is just an idea. I think it's probably a bad idea, but it's an idea. What if the owls? What the hell does that mean? Why owl, right? Well, it would actually be an acrostic that spells out oil, water, light, and salt. Now, the original title of the story is Salt and Light. Okay? But adding oil and water to salt and light is kind of interesting. So it's kind of like the moral side of the story is salt and light. It's the idea that these kids that are like oil and water, actually, together as they go from place to place, are bringing an ethical component to whatever situation in which they find themselves. And to a degree, it's the conflict between them that facilitates that that ethical solution, because it's actually the conflict between Tianara and Mel that often will reveal what the ethical solution to the problem of the day might be. So I thought, well, that's interesting. Instead of the title being Salt and Light, maybe we should have this really, really, really mysterious title. Owls. And then people would be like, what the heck does that even mean? Well, it makes perfect sense if you consider what the letters stand for. So I thought, that's kind of interesting. Just a stupid idea. You know, it's just a stupid idea that occurred to me. I mean, you could also spell the word slow. Right? Salt and light, oil and water. But how do you make that, you know, so my brain needs to go another couple levels creatively in order to actually turn it into something useful. But that's the way the creative brain works, right? It just kind of makes weird connections. So anyway, we're over a half hour into it, and I really was wanting to address Sententari's question because it's a very good question. And it underscores the fact that context is enormously important. One of the problems that I will say young, you know, or inexperienced creators can have, and I'll give you both sides of it. The bad side of it is you can come up with a creative idea that creates a scene that you see really clearly in your head, like the drama or the comedy of it's really clear to you. But it only works in isolation, okay? In other words, in the context of your greater story, it doesn't necessarily work that well. Or it may in fact harm the story. It may actually just be a distraction or an interruption that prevents the story from moving forward well. And then when that happens, you have to ruthlessly delete it. You have to edit it out. This show, I'll tell you right now, this episode is at 24:18 right now, and we still need 30 seconds for an intro segment. That means we have to lose 40 seconds of show. Well, how much is 40 seconds of show? There you go. I mean, that's a pretty good little bite right there. But we have to lose it. We have to. And that's not, I don't see that as a bad thing. That just means the editing has to be just a little bit tighter. Something that maybe drags us down a little bit just has to be chopped out. Doesn't matter. It'll be an improvement. Okay, so anyway, as far as story development, the key takeaway is that you do need context to really understand what's going on and to see why it makes sense. Ultimately, I will say this to put the button on Sententari's question, is that to the king, Asher is like a distant, annoying uncle. Okay? That relationship or that perception may become very important downstream in future episodes. Very important. Because right now the king is basically listening to Golik. He's pretty much only listening to Golik. And Asher it's kind of analogous to some of the things we have going on socioculturally today with misinformation, whatever side of that you're on. If you're on the left, misinformation is a complete echo chamber of lies and misinformation that is being swallowed wholesale by those who are on the right. If you're on the right, the misinformation is the mainstream that is actually censoring you and your voice. My opinion about that is pretty much irrelevant. I have an opinion about it, but I can see both sides. And they're both important because they're ironically causing a story to unfold in our own culture that is so absurdly huge that it is, in fact, crazier than a myth. But that's the world we're living in. And frankly, although I do have opinions about it, what I've kind of decided for myself is rather than comment too much, I do comment a little bit, but rather than comment too much sociopolitically about what's going on out there, what I'll do is I'll tell stories. I'll actually relegate my comments to storytelling and let people draw their own conclusions, because that's more fun. So anyway, there you go. Half an hour talking about story development, and now we need to get back into animation. Here's the irony of this little talk today. For those of you who are just here to talk or to look at animation being done, I apologize to you. You've been a little disappointed by the last 40 minutes talking about story. The flip side of that is it's highly likely, if you want to create animation and or you want to tell stories, that the last 40 minutes is probably 1 or 2 orders of magnitude more important for you to hear than anything that has to do with animation. And that's the truth. It's hugely important. The animation is an afterthought in a sense. A necessary evil, because it's a lot of work. It's not evil, it's wonderful, it's a lot of fun. But ultimately, when Jeffrey Katzenberg, I remember the yeah, well, go back and watch the first 40 minutes Inio-san. I think you'll probably find it quite interesting. If you're if you're concerned about the story and the context and why things are happening the way they're happening in the story, the only thing I'll say now is that the discussion came, I was going to have a discussion about story development anyway, because I had to add one little 5-second button to the story several minutes earlier than the scene I'm working on in order to make the current scene work. But more importantly, I got a comment from a guy who felt that this wink to the king felt inappropriate, like overly familiar. And again, out of context, I would totally agree. In context, knowing who these characters and the backstory of it all is and how the king views Asher and whatnot, it makes perfect sense. So, that's that. Now we've got to get back to animation. Back to animation. Actually, let's talk about animation in the voice closer to what we would get from Golek. Golek says,
He said, but now that you mention it.
okay. Now, his characterization obviously is hopelessly bad. Let's fix it right now. This characterization, this one, it's not horrible. And frankly, let me see. I'm Maestro Gatuna22. Okay, so for those of you who couldn't care less about story development, now is your time, because we're done talking about story development and now we're back to animation. But if you're a creative person, I just can't emphasize enough that you probably would benefit tremendously from the discussion of story development. Okay, so what shot is this? Let's see. We're going to do Golek 162. Gosh, I wonder if this was actually a blender. Let me see. 162. Yep, I'll bet you it was. It could be in OpenToonz, but I suspect this is a Blender. So let's go. First of all, let's open this up because I want to consider, it would probably be prudent to consider if we've got, I'm sorry, this is the wrong shot. We need to go to the prior one. But if we've got Golek being off character here a little bit, but if you go back here to this shot, nope, not this one. That was the mistake I made a moment ago. You got this. Okay, so now let's mark that. Let's just take a peek here. So there's Golek. And nope, that's not the right one either. Well, when you've got 83 trillion shots, it can get a little confusing. So, forgive me, friends. I think it's right there. Yep, there it is. Okay, so we've got good characterization and bad characterization. It's not that this is bad. It's just, I don't know. It's not quite where we need to be. Okay, so his eyes are a little lower. It's actually arguable that it's actually not that bad, but the eyes are somewhat lacking. Let's fix his eyes. Let's fix his eyes and bring a little balance to it. So here's what I'm going to do. This is flipped, and we've got a camera move baked in. Now, admittedly, for the purists out there, there is parallax in the shot, but it's so little that it's like pretty much useless. So why don't we just fix the still image, bring it back into the show, flip it properly, and just do the camera move here in Vegas. So that seems like a good strategy. So I'm going to clean the media pool and save our work. All right, so that was 162, and the way we'll do it is the simplest way possible, which is we'll go to our scenes and we'll look for 162 here. And I don't know if we have that in the storyboard. Not really, so we need to go to the actual scene file. But that's okay, that'll take half a second. Let's go to 162, and there's Golek. Okay, so what we got to do is flip him. Okay, now that's interesting. In the original sequence, he actually scowls. Let's do that. So let's take this one and bring this in. And now let's check something here on our continuity. We've got Golek over here. And yeah, I think it should be flipped. I'm thinking it should be flipped. Let's go A key. Let's just take a look at this. We're going to mirror this. Yes. Yeah, that should be flipped. Okay. So now what we'll do is we'll fix the characterization a little bit. And then we will... then we'll go ahead and add a little bit of animation. So I am going to liquefy this little guy. Just wanna feel it. Stretch, 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 stretch. Yep. One could argue, well, why don't you just redraw him? Yeah, there's a time for that. No question about it. We'll go like that. Alright, let's keep that. Flip the canvas back. Pull out a little bit. Yeah, I see what the issue might be. So we're just gonna have some fun with Golek today. Okay. Now, let's zip in and maybe make some amendments to his eyes. I'm going to hit the G key and just literally erase the eyes. The eyes are not too bad, actually. They're pretty close to being correct Golic eyes. But I'm getting in the groove today. I'm just getting started. So I'm thinking, give myself a little time to get my groove on. So he's got a little bit of okay. I'm gonna come back here. Yeah, okay. Alrighty. Seeing a little issue with his nose there, by the way. I'm gonna save that. Okay, let's do another little liquefy. Didn't really. It's amazing how sometimes you don't see stuff until you get a certain perspective. Not too bad, not too bad. Okay, now let's go in and give him the whites of his eyes, which are going to be basically kind of gray. He's pretty much lost in shadow. We should be able to just kind of sketch that in. And then we'll double check the color, make sure it's... Yeah, it's probably about right, actually. Yep, I'm liking Golic a little better. Save that. And I believe we need to unmirror. So yeah, look at this. This is horrible. Little details, little details. Alright, I'll check the comments. Nothing going on in the comments. Okay. Right on, people. Right on. Come on. That needs to be a little darker there, fella. A little darker. Uh-huh. We got to give Golic a little bit more age, frankly. He's, okay. Now, I wanted to do a little bit of liquefy on his head as well. I think that his ears just seem to be a little bit off kilter. Off kilter. That's what we say when we're like thinking and talking at the same time and can't speak like an intelligent human being. It's a little off kilter. You're a little off kilter, dude. Okay, I actually am gonna say this is wrong. Let's just see what happens if we kind of just move this. I think, yeah, that's probably a little more to like it, and I'm gonna actually flatten that out a little bit and just say, well, where would we want it to be? Maybe there. You say, but Dave, look at what that did to your background. Don't panic. Do not panic, people. We're gonna make it work. We always will make it work. We will always make it work. We introduce problems just so we can fix them, actually. Can you believe that? That's crazy stuff. Yep, that's what we do. Alright, so now what we're going to do is go in here and just take a, let's do our nice little paintbrush. Boom. And we'll just spread the color from the uncorrupted part. You say, well, wouldn't it be easier to go back to the layered image? Yep. It'd be easier. Yep. So I could spend 2 minutes finding the layered image, or 5 minutes discovering that the layered image doesn't exist. Or I can spend 30 seconds painting. Take your pick. You say, but Dave, it's not perfect. Of course it's not perfect. There's nothing in the show that's perfect. It's all just compromises of various kinds. All that matters is, does it look good? Does it feel good? Okay, I definitely don't like that. So, let's just, whoopsie, that's really the wrong brush. Now this is where I'm probably beating my head against the wall a little bit because, actually I think we're okay. I think we're okay. I'm gonna grab, let's try that brush. And I'm just gonna trick this out a little bit to just flatten out his, whoa, that was a little large, wasn't it? B key, thank you. I'm like, where the heck is my sizer? I can't find my sizer. Oh dear. All right. Now, what are we going to do? Well, let's go Control Insert, and let's add a dummy layer. Let's save this. Now we've saved it as a Krita file. And now what we're going to do is probably go, and by the way, that should be 8 frames a second. Let's go 4 frames forward, and then we're going to do a little animation. I would say let's do liquefy. I'm going to try shrink mode just to see if it works. This is probably a little risky, might not work, but we'll give it a try. Okay, 1, 2. Go back to move mode, as it were. Yep. Okay, little issue there. Let's back up a little bit. Let me just look at this. That's actually not too bad, but that does not work. We can't have that. Well, we gotta do a little correction there, unfortunately, but in, out. Actually, this is more the issue. That's better. I think for Golic that should be more of a straight line anyway. Alright, and we hit the play button. His eyes seem too narrow to me. Yep. Alright, so I want to go back here and, yeah, his eyes are way too narrow. Well, this is my weakness, my proclivity to yeah, okay. Golly, man, holy smokes. Hey, Chris K. So that's okay. Except I have a theory here. I have a theory what's going to help. I have a theory, and I'm going to go with my theory. Come on. Uh-huh. Let's mirror these frames. Get rid of all of these. Move them back yonder. Then move those forward. Boom. Yeah, it's just a subtle move. I like the move. What I don't like, well, I tell you, this is where the thing I've got a tug of war going on right now, and the tug of war is between just landing on some character model sheets and sticking with it, which is what I'm doing now with Asher. Basically, Asher looks the way Asher looks, and he's not going to be changing. Hey, Maria. Okay, so versus redrawing things as you go. The problem that I have on this particular shot is it combines the worst of both approaches, which is that I'm actually trying to improve a shot where the characterization was really off to begin with. So how do you improve something that's actually already broken? You don't improve it, you fix it, you redo it is what you do. So I want to just kind of look. I'm just going to scan through here. Yeah, there's some stuff here with with Golek that's going to be definitely require some work. I'm going to say, honestly, leveraging this shot makes way more sense. I believe I brought him back here. And I love his characterization here, so why are we going to fight this? 162 is gone. What we're going to do is we're going to actually work back in reverse. Yep, we're going to go with this, and I'm actually going to be bold and save this as 162 right now. Okay, that's interesting. Why did that save when I had saved it a bit ago? That's a little weird. But okay, that doesn't matter. We'll keep rocking. Okay, so we've got him in this position, which is probably good. And he says the matter of taxes. And then all we actually need is a push in on this shot with a bit of a scowl and maybe a different facial expression. So there we go. Problem solved. Well, unfortunately, and actually, arguably with just changing the mouth, we could actually use these two shots and be good to go. Other than maybe a little bit of an eyebrow change. So, okay, so here's what we're going to do. People. Let me see, this is his eyes. Yes, so this would be... So I think what we're going to do here is we're going to grab the whole kit and caboodle and mirror our frames. Yep, there we go. We are going to delete the eyes layer. We are going to seriously change the mouth layer. I wonder if we have a flat, just a closed mouth here. If we do, we'll use it. There we go. There we go. So this could go there. This could go here. This can all be deleted. And this should be moved forward probably to frame 5. Uh-oh, the mouth's out of whack, but that's okay. In the mouth layer, we'll simply go like that. Remember, we're going to do a digital push. So let's see what that looks like. I like that. Boom. Okay. It's a little sudden. It's a little abrupt. But I think in context, it's going to work quite well. I like that. The economical solution turns out to be the best one. Okay, let's go with it, baby. We're going to render that as 162. And what we're going to do actually is I'm going to go to 162 and delete what's there. Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to use an option here in Krita called unique frames only. So this will all make sense in half a second. Let's clean the media pool just to be sure we're starting clean, and we'll select this shot in the media list because the new one's going to get imported probably right there. Okay, so what we'll do is here's 162 in the render folder. What we're going to do is delete everything. Get rid of it. Gone forever. Goodbye. And then in Krita, we are going to use, let's see here. We're going to go to 162. 162 period, but we're only going to render unique frames. And by the way, I'm just going to go up through frame 12 or whatever. So what should happen is now we're going to get two images in this folder that are, and there they are, just our two expressions. That's it. And we'll just use that to tell our story, okay? Piece of cake. So now what we're going to do is go down here, push this forward. At this point, we don't even need to import them into Vegas because they're still images. We can just drag and drop them in. And there's that. And now we'll just kind of wait, and Vegas is acting a little freezy. This is usually a bad sign, by the way. When Vegas does this, it almost never recovers. It almost always winds up being a crash. So that's unfortunate, but it is what it is. I will take a moment while Vegas decides to crash and look at the, I think I saved it after I cleaned the media pool, by the way. Okay, so yeah, okay, so you guys are just having a nice conversation. That's cool. That's all good. All right, so let's run Vegas safely, as we like to say. Boom, 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 down. All right, let's see what we have. Will Vegas cooperate? Yeah, ever since. Yep, I saved it all right. Good for me. All right, I'm not even going to show the media pool. I'm going to do it this way so that Vegas doesn't act stupid. Let's see if it works. Boom. And you see, by not looking at the project media, which, by the way, probably the project media is back to, nope, it's thumbnails. That's interesting. Makes you wonder. Makes me wonder what would happen. Let me save my work. This is just me having to deal with a bit of a bug in Vegas. See right there? See how we don't see thumbnails? Now the question is Vegas going to generate the thumbnails, or is Vegas going to crash? And it looks like Vegas is going to crash. So if we waited forever, would it actually be okay? Maybe, but I've never seen it happen. What I've always seen is once Vegas goes into that spinning wheel mode, it doesn't come back. I mean, in 20 years. We're talking about 20 years of using Vegas. You say, well, why do you use Vegas if it's so buggy? Trust me, it's less buggy than all the other programs you could name. I'm really confident of that. Vegas has always actually been mega stable. All right. Okay, so there's our shots, and then what we'll do is we'll take this one, go to the end. By the way, this is going to be way too long. Boom, boom, right there, yeah. So we just want this and this, something like that, okay? And then on this one, we're going to do a push. So it's going to be a fast push. Watch this. Okay. Not quite, baby. That was way too slow. Boom. I'm going to say even quicker. Boom. Bop. Okay. Boom. Okay. Now what we need to do. I don't even know if, honestly, as I'm looking at this, I don't know that this shot's even needed. I almost feel like that change in expression weakens the shot, but that's okay. I'm going to go Control-C, Control-V to paste event attributes here so it's cropped the same. And then in this one, I'm going to go in and I'm going to take this keyframe out. so that it starts out at the cropped position. And that way, yeah, my sense is that probably the second shot will be chopped. Yeah, that does not help. That actually harms it quite a lot. This is going to be better storytelling. So I'm bumming. I'm bumming because I had to throw a picture out. Right? But guess what? The story floats right along quite nicely. So Golik's like, here we go.
That is the small matter of taxes.
Boom. Well, you got to remember, Golik's the one that convinced the king that the taxes were a good idea. I mean, come on. Okay, I got to look at the script, though, and see what the next line of dialogue is. Okay, so he says the people are taxed beyond what they can bear. What happens if we take this shot out completely? Why do we need to come back to Asher saying the people are taxed beyond what they can bear? I seriously question whether that's needed. So this gets back into story development. What if instead he said that off screen? So he says,
That is the small matter of taxes. People are taxed beyond what they can bear.
okay, so that would, if we're going to do that, then we would have to jump to this. Jump from this shot to this shot. That would work. There is a little problem here with Golik's hair. That hair is a little closer to his young Golik hair. My sense is that we should keep this shot in. So let's go to 163. What we're going to do is open 161, and we will save it immediately as 163, and that way it'll be easy to fix. So we're going to go with 161. Okay, and again, we're kind of following a certain workflow convention here, which is to take, if we're going to cut to the next shot, then we probably want to start with this expression because that's where we left off when we cut away from it before. So if we run this shot in reverse, that's interesting actually. I'm going to do it. I'm taking this out. Boom. I'm going to take this, and just for my own enrichment, I'm going to see what happens if we literally run it in reverse. I have a suspicion it's not going to work. It's going to work about halfway through the shot, and then it's going to quit working. So he says,
The people are taxed.
yeah, right there. Okay. So I'm just going to have fun with this and see if it works. So we're going to have to take his expression, dive into the change quicker. So there's the change. So let's go back to this. There's no reason to do this in Krita if we don't have to. The people are. Okay. Now, here's the question. He makes a phoneme there that could definitely pass for a T. So, why not? Okay, and there's a blink. So what if we split this? Oh my gosh, I think this is going to work. I'm gonna reverse it again. I'm going to put it back in normal. Ah. And I find it really interesting if he was actually to turn his attention back to Golik. And there's a B sound. The problem is that whole smile thing. So what we're going to have to do is bring in a still image. Okay, so what do we have then? People are taxed beyond what they can bear. And right there he says bear, but we never see the word bear. So now we're going to go to 161. I can't believe this actually worked. You'd be surprised how often it works. You'd be surprised, people. So we want to have the right there. B-A-R. We want these three followed by this one. Here we go. Here we go. Let's put this in. These are all going to be used for like one frame. So there's definitely a case to be made for, oh geez man, why not just redo this in Krita? Because this is fun. I mean, come on, editing is a lot of fun. And very, very creative. Very creative. You learn to edit, you learn to tell the story. Oh no, Vegas, seriously, dude? Oh, God. This is getting ridiculous. I've never actually had Vegas go quite this stupid. What does that mean? It means all my editing that I just did is gone forever. It has been lost. So that's my stupidity. I've been sitting here talking and thinking and saying how easy this is, and then poof. All it took was Vegas to make one hiccup, and I lose all my work. So there you go. That's what happens. And it is what it is. This I'll give myself 5 seconds to put this to bed so I don't rant. The sad thing about it is that finding answers as to why this happens, bugs with Vegas, has never been possible. For 20 years you can't find any answers. But that's Vegas. The thing is, 99.999% of the time it is extremely stable. But we are in a real pickle here because there's no way to recover. I'm screwed. I'm screwed. Goodbye. Goodbye. I'm done. Okay, so editing is where lots can happen. Yeah. So rather than fight with Vegas, because obviously it's really, really frustrating. If I would have simply been saving every time I made an edit, it wouldn't have been a problem. But I wasn't. At least I don't think I was. Sometimes I do it so quickly that I don't realize it. So we might as well go back and at least see what we've got. But I'll bet you I lost everything. That whole editing, that whole shot, gone. Which is really sad because that means that's literally about a quarter hour of lost productivity where I would have had it would have been amazing productivity. Wow, you got a whole shot done here in like no time at all. And actually I even lost the shot of Golik. So just how stupid can you be, Dave? 100% my fault, 100%. Very, very maddening, but it is what it is. And I have no one to blame but myself. So, here we go. It's the lesson I've learned with Krita. It's the lesson I've learned with Tahoma. It's the lesson I've learned with literally every program you can name, including all the ones that some people get on the chat sometimes and say, you should be using this program. Every single program I've ever used for 30 years has these issues. Everyone, no exceptions. 100%. There we go. And all I would have had to do is what I just did. Just click the save button. But I will not be deterred. There is no getting bummed out here. Something about dragging those freaking images into the timeline is making Vegas puke. And I have no idea why. I do not want this to be in thumbnail mode. I want this to be in either list or details mode. Something about the graphics seems to make Vegas puke. And to be fair, I've never had a timeline that had so many image sequences in it. If they were all MP4s, would it be less problematic? Probably, but I just don't know. There's no way to know. So there it is. Or DaVinci's a great video editor. Yeah, Mikhail, let me tell you something about DaVinci. For the last 10 years, about once a year, I download and install the latest, greatest, amazing, wonderful, fantastic, you can't believe, and it's free DaVinci. Every year I do it. Every year I install it, and every year within 60 seconds it crashes. Well, maybe it's your machine, Dave. Yeah, maybe my 12-core, 32 gigabyte memory on which I've edited multiple feature films that are released around the world. Maybe that machine's the problem. Or maybe DaVinci's the problem. Maybe. Hard to say, isn't it? But yeah, I've done the DaVinci thing over and over and over again. And better than most software I've ever used. But there is this one issue. Something about dragging these images in when you've got a really, really thick, busy timeline seems to make Vegas want to puke. And it's one of the very, very few things in 20 years of using Vegas that I've found does tend to be problematic. So it is what it is. We're going to get this shot, and we're going to get it correct, and we're going to get it exactly the way it was before. Pretty close. Okay? And so we're going to do it the same way. Except the only difference is going to be that we are going to absolutely save after every change. And every time I've done that, it's made everything work out fine. So, what did I say? I said, I'm actually going to put a timer on this one. Found my edit point. Come on, right there. I think I'll put the eye blink in. Yep. Save. So the people, where was that B? All right, I'm going to look at the people are taxed beyond what they can bear. No, I get a little bit on this stuff, but you know what? This is what you have to do. I mean, I have to get extremely determined, and when the tools let me down, by gum, I have to keep going. You can't just like get mad and take your ball and go home when the software lets you down. The software always lets you down. I've never seen it where it didn't. I mean, God, you know, people talk about Blender. Back in the day, I was one of the leading Blender gurus on the planet. Now, this is 20 years ago, the early days of Blender. It used to crash. They would release. It would crash every 5 minutes. Like, for years, okay? Years of using Blender where it would crash every 5 minutes. Once they got to around the 2.5 range, it became a lot more stable. But it used to just constantly crash. People are taxed beyond. Okay. And I'm actually going to try doubling that and see what happens. Save our work. Yeah, I wish it wasn't true. I mean, I just feel like stable software isn't that hard to achieve. But boy, oh boy, nobody seems to manage it. Like nobody. Okay. Doing this repeat is a little risky. I believe this lasted too long. Okay. I don't like that. So I'm going to again save the work. Slide this out. And what I did before was I said, what if he turns his attention to Golik? So let's just kind of look at this in the trimmer, I would say. So again, saving my work, literally saving my work every 10 seconds. And if I had only done that in the beginning, if only. It's too bad too because the way I had it edited together was pretty spot on. I'm not going to pull in the still images yet. We'll see. Okay, and I want to really go right into that expression. People attacks beyond. Okay, I like the beyond right there. Okay, and now what I want to do is see where he turned to Golek. That really right there is good. That's good. From there to there. It just needs to not look like he's smiling. So we're going to grab this and reverse it. Boom. Save our work. People attacks beyond what they can bear. Oh, wow, that was good. Holy cow. All right, I got to check my properties. Disable resampling there. It's looking like, yeah, right there, this is resampling. That's what resampling is, by the way, guys. It's like this stupid looking ghosting to sort of blend frames. It's utterly useless. I've used it one time ever. So the one time it was somewhat useful. It basically gave me a simulated motion blur kind of situation. So he says bear, and now we need to just go to a sort of a grave look on his face is all we need. And I believe this is what it was. So here we go. I saved my work, so the worst that can happen is we get another crash. And save. Okay, it appears to have saved. Okay, so that's good. Boom. And this works out well because when he turns his attention to Golek, Golek's got the next line of dialogue. So he says there's the matter of taxes. The people are taxed beyond what they can bear. Come on. That worked. Am I right? Am I right? Come on, people. Hello, Dave, and happy Friday to everyone. I know that was Amar's voice, I'm sure. Right on. Okay, what are we doing on time? An hour and a half. Okay, so thus far today, in an hour and a half, we've accomplished a meager 6 seconds. But, to be fair, I spent the first 40 minutes blabbing about story development. So, yeah. Mikhail, I tell you, Enio, Maria, anybody that wants to use DaVinci and get back with me and let me know how that goes for you, let me know because I've had terrible luck with DaVinci. Terrible. And I wish it would. I wish it was stable. Maybe if I jumped through some hoops. So to be fair to DaVinci, the caveat in my personal approach is that I say if you have me download an installer and I run the installer, I should not run the program and immediately the first thing that happens is it fails and or crashes like in a spectacular way. That shouldn't happen. Now maybe that's got to do with dependencies like linked libraries that that it's like the quintessential example would be you install a program and then the first thing that happens is it doesn't run and it tells you that you need to download the Microsoft C++ runtime. Well, to me that's insane. That's insane. Hard drive space is worthless today. So it's not like there's any reason to make your program smaller. So to statically link those libraries into your application makes way more sense. But there are a number of rants in that topic that I could get going on, and I'm not gonna. So, the king says, okay, I see what happens. You help the people your way, which we greatly appreciate, and the king helps them his way. I'm gonna say that looks pretty good. Okay. So this is where, and by the way, I reran this. Okay, yeah, I'm in list mode. Okay, so this is where he says, how generous of you. And then he makes this bold proclamation. And whenever he makes the bold proclamations, you get the glow. You tax the landowners until they cannot pay their servants. Then you annex their lands to settle the debt. Wealth that is stolen is no wealth at all. And of course that infuriates Golik. Okay, so we're going to get this done. So let's get rid of this, 163. It'll pull this downstream, and we're going to come back here. Okay. So I think what we will do here is let's save this as 163. What was this one back here? Well, that was 161. Okay, so this would have been 163. And that's 053. That was repeated. Okay, let's 63, 169. So that was cobbled from the earlier shots to begin with. So I think since 163 is this one, yep, we're going to save this as 163. File, save as, boom, 163. Ping, already exists, and save it as a Krita file. Okay. He shouldn't be smiling, obviously. So let's get rid of all these and give him a reasonable mouth. B. Okay. That shouldn't be a smile. Okay. Now, got a little problem with his characterization here. Let's fix it. Save our work. Boom, baby. Okay. And what I'm going to do is draw it the way I think it should be, and then deal with erasing the one that's whacked. Yeah, that's kind of a lot better. G key, let's just chop that in there. So, yeah, sorry about the software rant there, folks. Nobody likes it when their stuff is a smashing and a crashing. Okay, B key, please. Not the G key, but the B key. Okay, flip that back. Okay. Maybe a little more extended there. So he says, L. And this speech should not be happening anywhere near that quickly. This is going to be unnecessary. I would say all that's gone. This stuff, I actually like those expressions. I'm gonna see. Okay, mistake, mouth. Okay, this is kind of a flaw. I wish it was like Blender where you could hit a hotkey to invoke the tool. The problem is the selection is so small that you can't actually get a double arrow to move it. So you have to zoom in to where there's enough room for it to resolve where your mouse is pointing. Bit of a silly problem, but it is what it is. So he says, okay, also, yeah, another issue. Golly, and it's a big one. Not quite sure how I got away with this in the earlier shot. It might be one of those things that I actually go back and wind up yet another fix. This probably would be okay like that. This one, we're right at the beginning of the shot, so we probably can get away with. He's a bit staring out into space, but he goes right into the blink. So okay, so he says, all right, so now what we want is, let's just take these out and redo them. They're in the wrong position anyway, so let's go to the mouth. And I believe we probably want to be hitting the G key, not in curve mode. Insert. Oh, come on. My pinky hit the wrong key. Okay, so he said, let's save our work. So he says,
How generous.
okay. And then right here, this is just a little early.
How generous.
I think we want another blink. And then he's gonna do a little turny poo. So let's go here to the head replacement. Oh, the head replacements. I'm gonna do a slow out. And I think that's it. Actually, I'm gonna say this should actually be this head. I think there should be another eye blink, and then let's just kind of fix this. This is only going to be on the screen for literally 1 frame, so it's kind of stupid, but you'll never notice this, but I'm going to fix it anyway. We'll just do that. It's so easy to fix this stuff. This is why I enjoy working in Krita, because you know, if you're willing to face the fact that you have to fix things here and there. Okay, so here I would say let's just insert a key there to get rid of the mouth. And we're going to be cutting away at this point. So let's go, this is 28, frame 28. Cool beans. File, save. All right, Control R, and this is 163. Yeah, 163. Boom, boom. Boom, boom. I'm going to go here and just double check this, by the way. So here's 163. Yeah, we're going to take all this and delete them. Gone forever. 163, go. So that's going to render. And now we're going to ignore all missing files. We're going to clean the media pool, and then we're going to import. We're actually going to go to this one, select this in the project media list, and now we're going to import 163, and we'll have that shot done. 163, where are you? Da 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 da. Yeah, scanning the horizon for 163. Not very many images, is it? Ah, I know what just happened. Cancel. Let's re-render that. This should not have been selected, only unique frames. There's a lot of situations where it's quite useful, but this is not one of those situations. So, again, unfortunately, we must once again click, scroll, and laboriously browse till we find. Okay, this is going to be 8 frames a second, and 163. We've got a bunch of still images. I wonder why they're ghosted. Why are those ghosted in the media pool? That is a little strange. I've never seen that before. Okay. Now, I wanted to cut away from this immediately because he flies into this prophetic proclamation. So, you help the king in your way. Ah, we got to turn off the resampling.
How generous.
Okay, there is a really, really wacky problem. That does not work at all. And I missed that. Yeah, right there. Aha, I see what I did wrong. You silly goose. What we'll do is we'll redo the eye blink. Sorry about that, folks. That was just utterly irresponsible on my part. Utterly irresponsible and unforgivable. Actually not true. It's not unforgivable. It's inexcusable. You can forgive me, but that doesn't excuse my horrible, horrible, horrible oversight here.
I shall not be excused, but merely forgiven.
Okay. This closed eye we're really, really missing. We don't even really see it, but I'm just going to quickly re-render so that we can go back to Vegas and make sure everything's awaken. Everything's awaken, working. So he says,
How generous of you.
well, he doesn't say of you, but okay. So now there's one thing I still don't like. I don't believe we should have that expression. I do not believe at all. I'm going to put that there and re-render, and we are done. And now back to the next shot. Ba 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 ba. Okay, I have not looked at the chat or anything for quite a while here, so let's see what's going on. And there's pretty much heard so many things on DaVinci. We'll give it a try. Well, there's a ton of programs do that when downloading. I'm no way DaVinci master, but I was able to do all the time lapse or any videos, anything else. That's good. I'm trying to find the time to make templates and work on motion graphics in DaVinci. Has anyone tried the Cursor Snapper free plugin by Spitfire Storybook? Not a clue. It's supposed to be helpful for drawing in 3D when using Blender. Ah, yeah, that'd be interesting. That would be interesting. The whole 3D drawing with the grease pencil in 3D, like virtual kind of thing, is interesting. My prediction, if the tools becomes, okay, why is the Ah, can you believe I've made yet another mistake? This needs to be copied here. Oh, I am just indescribably silly today. So my prediction about the whole 3D thing, because it is very, very cool, but there's other things, especially in animation, that have come along that have been like um uh like like uh like bullet time in the Matrix. Yeah, I'm an infidel. So bullet time in the Matrix is a great example of what I'm talking about. What happens is it's so cool that within less than a year, you see it popping up everywhere in TV commercials. And within a year, it's viewed as completely passe, completely old news, and we're sick of seeing it because we've seen it a million times. That's what I suspect the whole Blender 3D, drawing in 3D virtual space, 2D characters that are actually 3D. I think that thing, the tools will get just to the point where they're actually kind of cool and usable, and then somebody will do something cool with it, and within a year it'll be completely passe and no one will want to see it anymore. That's my prediction. In other words, it will not stand the test of time, I suspect, because it is a very clunky way to work, and you'd have to be a really committed person to learn that methodology and get good with it. What was in the first Blade movie? I didn't see Blade, so that was Wesley Snipes, wasn't it? I didn't see that. So what was in there? Okay. It could be that bullet time came from Blade first. That's irrelevant. The Matrix made it popular for sure. And so my point is that immediately you were seeing bullet time all over the place in like pharmaceutical commercials, right? And that's what happens. And then pretty soon it's passe. Same old, same old. We're sick of seeing it. So the question is, what stands the test of time? The truth of the matter is, the type of stuff I'm doing here is what has so far proven to stand the test of time. Just plain old, 2D cartoons. People still enjoy, including myself, Avatar: The Last Airbender. Now, I kind of don't enjoy it that much because I've seen it so many times, but so this, I don't even know what that is. But yeah, I don't think the Blender grease pencil in true 3D thing will ever become mainstream. There will be a very few number of probably short films that are done using it, and in some way it might integrate itself into a full-blown workflow, like the way they're doing that Star Wars show. I forget what it's called. It starts with an M. The way they're using LCDs as a screen. But for them, it's a real time saver. They're using the Unreal Engine. Yeah, bullet time. They're using the Unreal Engine so that when they move the camera, it's just like being in a video game where moving the camera causes the background to shift, and they've got literally a wall of LCD, or I should say LED panels that not only give you a real virtual background, just like the old days when they used to put a feature film behind you, but it also causes the screens to light the characters, which is great. It's an incredibly cool tool. I could see totally using that. It's just that I would have to get like a 5-foot screen, and I would do everything with a locked camera. I wouldn't try to use the Unreal Engine. Yeah, Mandalorian. What I would do as a budget filmmaker, I would embrace the aesthetic of the locked camera. I would say, well, we're going to do a throwback to the 1950s, to the days of CinemaScope, to the great epic, like the movies like The Robe, these movies. They usually had a locked camera. Well, that's because the camera weighed 300 pounds, right? But that, to me, that's a perfectly valid aesthetic. And you don't need to have the camera moving all the time. And I don't believe it would harm people's enjoyment of the show either. Okay, something wacky's going on here. Media offline. So 163 is corrupt beyond description. So I'm going to actually delete all those and absolutely clean my media pool. This is my own fault, by the way, because I've gone in and replaced some shots that were referenced later in the timeline. So no big deal. I just need to look at the script and see what comes next. So I said Unreal Engine. Is Unity a 3D, like a game engine or something? I don't know what Unity is. I don't know, maybe you're referring to a show or something. It could be that that's the engine they're using. I don't know. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about, Amar. I'm talking about doing 2D animation and 3D sculpting using VR in Blender. There's very cool stuff out there on YouTube. Not much. There's like 2 or 3 examples of it, you know. Very few. But it's really, really cool. You know, it's like a guy drawing a dinosaur and he's actually drawing the, you know, the outside. Okay, so it could be the Unity engine they're using on Mandalorian. I don't know. I was thinking Unreal Engine, but, you know, it's a 3D game engine, though, that they're using, and they've got it linked to the cameras so that when they move the camera, the whole background just goes right with them. It's really a cool, it is the first substantial step forward in terms of increasing the effectiveness and the efficiency of virtualization of your environments. In other words, it's the first thing to come along to effectively and cost effectively replace a green screen that gives you a result that's actually better. It's not just as good, it's better. Everything's faster because they're actually going back to capturing, in large part, what they need straight into the camera, which is awesome. I love it. I love it muy mucho. Now, can you imagine if you had a very, very, very large, you know, like TV screen, PC screen, like a 60-inch or bigger, right? And you just put an actor in front of it and you use still images. You've got a locked camera and a locked background. So you get all the benefits. You just don't get to move the camera. To me, it's like that would be, for a budget filmmaker, that's a very small detriment. That's like no big deal at all. Frankly, around 8 years ago, the single thing that improved my filmmaking the most in terms of people, like distributors looking at it and what they would think the movie costs to make. The single thing that made that number go up, other than using lights better, was actually locking the camera. Not even trying to move the camera. And just following your basic rule of thirds composition. You know, cinematography 101. Anyway, okay, where are we at here? We've got to go. Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah. So all we need to do here is have Asher say, "Wealth that is stolen is no wealth at all." Okay, let's do it. This is going to be 160. I think we'll make this 165. Do we dare? Let's find out. Let's go control. Let's go and see if there's a... Oops, I'm in the wrong location. Let's see if there is a 165. 165, where are you? Nope, there is no 165, so we've got a little bit of liberty here. So we're going to save this as, believe it or not, 165. We're just doing it, baby. Go! And we're going to save it as a Krita file. Alright, so what we're going to do is we're cutting back to a close-up of Asher, and he says to the king, "Wealth that is stolen is no wealth at all." So this can be gotten rid of. Gone. Gone. Yep, I'm just gonna... I'll keep the eye blink, but I'm gonna get rid of all this. We're gonna start from scratch. So what we're gonna do is hit the A key and flip this baby. Same thing here. And let me see if this is kind of sort of close. I actually think the higher position's better. So this is a little obnoxious, but probably not worth doing. Actually, just get rid of that. Okay, we got to do a little fix here on Asher. Let's do it this way. Let's do a little sculpting action and see if we can turn this into something kind of useful. So I'm going to use Liquify for this, and this is a little risky, but what I'm going to do is pull that over like that and just see if we have the ability. And I'll redraw this stuff that's getting too stretched out. I just want to see what happens here. If we can get a little bit of a turn, just a little bit. Okay. Yeah, this is one of those things where you're going, I don't know if this will work. It probably, most attempts to do what I'm doing right now have not worked very well. But you never know. You never know. Okay, let's kind of go with that and then fix it up. All right, let's go. I'm going to do this brutally. I want to do this as brutally as possible. Just get rid of stuff. Not even try to save it, because all it's doing is taking crap and distracting me with the crap, and that is not good policy. So I may even wind up drawing him completely, but I want to turn him back to the king. Yep, that looks good. Let's go ahead and get rid of all this, just because there's been enough liquefying going on to make the lines just corrupted beyond belief. So poof, gone. Gone, 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 gone. Alright, now I'm actually going to flip it because I want to be in a better position to be right-handed. Yeah, there we go. Except not quite. I'm well aware that his nose is sticking out like a sore thumb there. That really needs to be fixed, but that's not the big problem. The big problem, I'll show you in half a second. Whoops. Yeah, this needs to be more like that. There we go. That's Asher. Okay. We'll just scribble that in. Scribble, scribble, scribble. Okay. Now. Alright, and now I'm going to flip again. I'm just going to flip to just make sure I'm pretty balanced here. And I think we're okay. Not totally thrilled with this. So I'm going to redo that. Oh, come on. There we go. Hit that B key. Let's switch that brush so we can just paint this in. And then we'll go in and fix up the Okay. And now it appears that Krita's freezing up. Weird, weird, weird how I've been noticing lately that if you simply click away from Krita to another program, it seems to come back to life kind of consistently. It's been doing so. Sorry, I want the G key. Not quite what I was after. That's better. Okay, so he says wealth that I guess we'll go is I will acquiesce and give him an O expression there. Okay, so he says wealth that is stolen is no wealth at all. But I think I might want to have a change in his head position. So now I'm going to jump back up here and take a looky poo. Using really large monitors. Jama Jurabev. I think I've seen Jama's work. Projecting environments. So. Stole it. Okay, I am going to have a little fun now. And by the way, are we flipped? Oh, come on, Krita. Sheesh. I gotta check this. Yeah, the stick is on the stage right, Asher's left. So this is wrong. God darn it. I gotta take a look at this. I gotta back up here a little bit and make sure I don't have a continuity problem. Nope, that stick has always been on the same side. That's good. Pretty easy problem to make, or mistake to make actually, is to have a continuity issue where something flips sides. Okay. I would say, I don't know that this shot is not really needed. I say we get rid of it completely. Yep. And now, what are we going to do here? I'm going to insert a key on the mouth. Boom. I'm going to come back here, make sure I'm on the head layer, and then we're going to do a head flip. All right? So this is tricky. Fortunately, the center is just about in the right position. So I'm going to do a down. Not bad, not bad, people. Okay. I'm going to say here, I'm kind of forgiving the nose, but I think the nose needs a little bit of work here. So let's save our work. Boom. And we're going to do just a little nose work here. Little nose work. Yep, there we go. There we go. Alright, all I got to do is add the lip sync and the shot will be done. Okay. I am going to roll some animation. Roll some animation. And disappear for a couple minutes. I'll be back in probably, oh boy, I would say, I gotta refill my water. I would say give me 3 minutes or so. I'm back. Well, the Arctic winds are coming in. I kid you not. We are gonna get the first really good deep cold of the year. Down to, I think, -5, which isn't that bad, but it's definitely pretty chilly. Okay, let's keep rocking. I guess I didn't have this looping, so it played through once and then quit. Sorry about that. And here we are. Let me think for a moment. I wanted to mention, by the way, guys, I had talked a little bit about the I'm going to talk about some future plans here for the show, but also keep working on the show. So I'll just show this real quick. Look. Okay, so a lot of notes. What are those notes about? One wonders. Well, I'm actually thinking, I talked a little bit yesterday about possibly doing a crowdfund situation on this show. And this is what I think. Thus far, I've been hesitant to even consider going down that road, or this really needs to be the pencil. Going down that road because it's taken me, I've given a year, literally a year of my life to getting the workflow figured out. It's kind of a moral thing in a way. The idea is that I wouldn't want to crowdfund a project unless I felt extremely confident that I was in a good position to deliver the goods, you know, and that I can that there's really a value proposition, if you will, for the people that might support something like that. Okay, so this is a little bit of a problem. Let's see if it's going to be a problem. It probably is, but we'll try. This is always risky behavior. You see this type of wiggling of lines in a lot of the 60s era Disney movies when they switched to the Xerox system that made traditional ink work not necessary. Yeah, I don't think that's going to matter. Okay, especially because his mouth's going to be moving. However, I am pretty firmly resolved that actually doing a crowdfund on this project makes all the sense in the world. So the value proposition, in a sense, and I throw this out as inviting you guys to, hey, Ashon, hey, Aklidesh Das. Aklidesh, you don't have to post the same thing 5 times. Please don't do that. If you're a robot, please leave. If you're not a robot, you know, let's show some courtesy and not post the same thing umpteen times. That's rude. However, we'll call that a boo-boo and say, hey, if you got something to offer, you know, you're welcome here. Anyway, so at this point, I do feel confident that this show is going to be good. You know, it's going to be good. It's a good story, good characters. And I think to look for that type of support, yeah, that works. To look for that type of support kind of demands that again, as I say, that there's a value proposition beyond what's already been done. So you have to have already done something so you can say, you can demonstrate that you're able to actually do the job. There have been any number of crowdfunds by people that are wanting to do something in the animation arena, and what typically they do is they actually shroud the real their real capability because they're actually not able to deliver the goods. And so they're trying to crowdfund on the basis of teasing it with a couple still images, or, you know, it's basically a pretty lame effort to sell the idea that this is what I'm going to be able to do, when in fact it's not at all certain that they're able to do it at all. And sometimes they, in fact, it turns out that they can't. I would never want to be that guy. Okay, so let's get the dialogue in here. Is no, well, at all. Okay, so that's a little bit of a snarky tone. I would say his mouth maybe is moving south a little bit too much. Yeah. His mouth is kind of low on his head, but I've gone too far, and that's just because I was zoomed in too much and didn't realize it. But at this point, I think it makes sense. And the concept would be that we have a first episode that now needs to be finished, so the back half has to be finished. I pretty much know how long it's going to take me to do the back half because I've got the workflow figured out. I've got the quality where it needs to be. I've got the work process in place. I know I can generate a 24-minute episode in basically about 90 days. That, at this point, I feel very comfortable with. Ashdan asks where I'm going to upload it. Akladesh, I will ask you one more time. Akladesh Das, please don't keep chatting like hello. I've said hello. Other people probably are thinking hello, but they're also thinking, who is this obnoxious guy that's posting the same thing over and over and over? Okay. So people aren't impressed with your approach at this point, I would say. So my message to you is learn from that. I've never deleted or banned or, locked somebody out of the chat. So I'm doing my best to guide you toward not having that happen, because that would be a bummer. Right? But of course, Akladesh Das may in fact be a robot. We don't know. Let's hit the old insert key and redo this one. There we go. Okay. Okay, and we're going to do 42 frames. And this shot is done. So, Ashnan Banuthipan. Ashnan Banuthipan. I assume is kind of sort of how your name is spoken. I do not know, but I am guessing. And I would say the answer is because I have the mechanics of distribution already in place, I would expect it to be everywhere. Now, if I wind up going union on the production for the sake of finding certain voice actors that I've worked with in the past who are in the union, meaning the Screen Actors Guild, I would have to sort of repurpose the show as a union production. That's not a big deal. That's just a matter of signing a contract. The new media contract isn't a bad way to go for budget filmmakers, because it allows you to tap into union talent, and The only real caveat is that the initial premiere of your show or your movie needs to be online. At least the last time I checked, that's the way the contract worked. Okay, there's one little problem here. This pose needs to have an eye blink. And arguably, the next one probably should keep the eye closed as well. I'll try it both ways and see how it works. So the short answer is, where will the show appear? I don't know, but my expectation would be that it's going to appear everywhere. You know, the usual suspects. Potentially actually on a YouTube channel. Potentially here. Perhaps for a limited time. It depends. Then, you know, the usual suspects. Amazon Prime, Tubi. You know, a lot of places where you can see it for cheap to free. Yeah, I think this should actually be a close as well. Let's do that. But I think that a Kickstarter path would be not a bad idea. And my premise would be that you could look at the 12 episode arc as a stretch goal, because truthfully the concept of the show, I'll explain it this way. The concept of the show takes an epic story and hides it inside and through the 12 episodes. So the best thing I can think to relate it to would be Avatar: The Last Airbender. Did Avatar require 4 seasons to tell the actual core story? Not at all. The core story could have been told in much, much, much less time. But what they did was they wove the core story, the epic, through individual standalone episodes that had their own little cast of sub-characters and this sort of thing. This could be told in 4 episodes, actually. Now, it could be that maybe the first one and the last one maybe would want to be a double-length episode, and then the 2 in the middle would be regular 24-minute episodes. But you could definitely tell the story in 4 episodes. But my plan was to tell it in 12. And it would certainly be possible to repurpose some of the plot so that you could tell the epic story in 4 episodes but still have everything set up so the series could continue. So therefore, the goal would be to fund essentially the 4 episode epic as an initial stretch goal, where the main goal would be to underwrite the completion of the 2-part pilot, which then gives you a basis on which to go pitch the show wherever you're going to pitch it. That makes sense to me. So your goal is to underwrite the finishing and then the post-production, paying voice actors, the musical score, blah, 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 whatever it's going to be, to get the show done. And then the initial stretch goal would be to create 4 episodes and actually finish out the epic. And the longer stretch goal would be to just go ahead and underwrite the entire 12 episode series. Those are all very doable ideas. Very doable. So my thinking right now is I want to get this episode into a very, very finished form in the month of February. That's why I'm going back and redoing shots and fixing them up. I want this episode, which is the first half of a definite 2-parter, because really you're left hanging in the middle. At the end of this 24 minutes, there's a lot of unanswered questions that get answered in the second 24-minute segment. This is what I'm looking for. So that would be the idea, is that we're going to underwrite the completion of the pilot, both in terms of post-production and in terms of actually doing the finished animation of the back half, of which, by the way, 8 minutes of it is done. It's going to still need some fix-ups just like this does, but basically you've got 8 minutes of the second half already complete. So it's a third done. And that would be kind of my concept. Now, here we have Golek. Let's backtrack and look at this situation here as far as standing in the presence of the king. Golek's a little offended.
But now that you mention it,
here we go.
there is the small matter of taxes.
Yeah, people are taxed beyond what they can bear. You help the people in your way, the king helps the people in his way. Okay. So then he basically impugns the king for the way he's taxing the landowners.
Wealth that is stolen is no wealth at all.
Stolen? How dare you? Okay. Really like the acting here. Got a little problem with Golek's hairline. I'm kind of willing to excuse it in the wide shot, I suppose. Although, Lord knows I'll probably go back and fix that. But what laptop or computer? Well, this is a desktop computer that a client of mine built for me. That's standard Windows PC running 8.1, 12 cores, 32 gig of memory. A somewhat aging GPU, if the truth be known. Okay. So now, let's look at 169 and see what 169 is. So I'm just throwing that out there because I think about the crowdfunding idea, because I think that it would be appropriate for this concept, for this show. I just haven't wanted to go there until I was confident that it's going to be good and that I can deliver it in the reasonable time frames, that I'm shooting for. So, there is no intro for the show yet. Ashnan. Banutipan. There is no intro yet. I'll be taking pieces of these first two episodes and pretty soon actually putting together a intro segment, because I'm kind of seeing that probably happening in the month of March. Everything associated with promoting it and crowdfunding it and everything involved with that is the month of March. February is for getting episode 1, the animation part of it, all dialed in so that it's a good, solid, complete episode. Therefore, I've proven that I can, in fact, create a complete episode from start to finish, yada, yada, yada. Okay, I suspect that 169 is, in fact, a Blender shot. Let's find out. Let's go to Anime, Salt and Light, Scenes, and I'll go up here on the other screen and say 169 is the folder we're looking for, and in there, indeed, we find out that it is a Blender shot. Okay. Now, why does that look a lot different to me? Well, maybe not. Okay. So, can we work with this? I say we can. Here's how we're going to do it. Let me just jump here. Okay. Where I want to be here is actually 3D view, so I can see my layers. And I'm hoping, good. I'm hoping that Golek is all by himself. And the good news, let's go to the grease pencil and see here. Okay, so that's the bad news. The very bad news is that there's a lot of animation baked into the grease pencil. But Golek is parented to an empty, obviously. And so that means that most of the movement is happening to the entire object as opposed to being grease pencil animation. So the question becomes, how can we, or can we, patch up his characterization without having to completely redo the shot? And the reality is we may have to completely redo the shot, which would be a bummer since, again, the timing and the acting on this shot's pretty good. Okay, A, we can definitely fix the outlines and detail on this garment by just putting everything in another layer. So let's just create a GP layer and call this fixes, okay, and then save our work immediately. So we're going to call this fixes. Now if we're going to do fixes, let's just take a peek here and see where it falls apart. Okay. Skin patch, I'm pretty sure is his skin, so looks like the shadows are baked in. Auto keying is on. So what I want to do actually immediately is parent this to the empty as well. By parenting the fixes to the empty, whatever animation happens because of the empty, which I suspect is most of it, I'm hoping, that will automatically inherit the animation. So that means if I hit the D key and say, let's give him his bald head. Okay, the color's completely wrong. And let's just undo that. I gotta look at, I'm obviously entering a scene that was done months ago, so let's turn off shadow. Yeah, that doesn't seem to okay, okay. So where the heck is where the heck is the color of the guy's skin? That is okay. Is it all under shadow? It looks like it might be. Let's take a peek. No, it's not under shadow. Why? Oh, I know why. Ah, that's bad. I think it's bad. Let's see. If we take out the skin, he disappears. And this is nothing. I'm going to get rid of that layer completely. So what I'm looking at right here is why the heck is this his skin, but yet when I draw it here in the fixes, it's the wrong color. And I know why. It's because there's probably a tint factor. No, there's not a tint factor. Yep, there is. Right there. There's the answer. Okay. So now if we go to the fixes, let's just do this. Let's go Control C, Control V. Okay, so now we've given the fixes layer the same tint that Golik has. So now if we use the skin color, I'll bet you it's going to work. So I'm going to go like this. I'm just going to kind of carefully... Yes. Oh, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Okay. Fine. I'm just going to be liberal with my strokes. Okay, so now here's what I'm hoping. Here's what I'm hoping. Yes! Yes, it was all parented to the empty, so it all fell apart there. Fair enough. I can live with that. And so what we have is actually this move that takes it off kilter. Not too bad. Not too bad. So how do we address that? What I would do, I hope you guys are like into the Blender thing here today, because if I want to salvage this shot, I want to do some fixes on his eyes. And probably during the move it won't matter. And that little animation there is a little punitive. Let me see if... Yeah, and he never moves again. So that's all mouth animation. So that's good. So what we have is we've got a little bit of a tweak there, and you can see it right here. It's all the interpolated keys. So let's go here. And what we'll do is we'll just hit the... are we in edit mode? No. Let's get to edit mode. Okay, and what we want to do is hit the star key to isolate just the layer that I'm working with. So now I hit the A key, and I'll hit the G key, and now I should be able to just ease that into position. And now what I want to do is G key again, and just smack that down. Can we get away with not doing the tween? Nah, maybe. Maybe. Let's see. Let's hit Alt A. Yeah, that's okay. That's almost like a squash and stretch, so that doesn't really matter. But this is problematic. So we're going to do this the hard way. We're going to get to this location, hit the A key, and just get all this over here. That's fine. And now let's work backwards. Yep, this is going to be easier than I thought. Easier than I thought, people. Look at that. Piece of cake. We fixed his hair that quickly. Awesome. I love it. File. Save. Okay, looks like no more chatter. Not too much chatter. So now what I want to do is, let's go ahead and jump to this screen so I can look at my settings and see if everything is rendered or is going to render out as expected. Yes, it is an underscore. It is 169. So that means I can actually go Control F10 and Blender appears to be frozen. Really? Seriously? Blender, the application that never crashes, is gonna like lock up on me? Oh my goodness. That is insane. Are we actually going to have to... Oh my gosh, I've been saved. I've been saved. For some reason it came back to life. Okay, Control F10. There we go. All right, so that'll update it, and then what we have to do is look at the earlier shots of Golok and see how bad we might be off character here. But I'm actually loving what I see. There's something else I'm going to do on his clothing layer to give it a magical instant outline. So that's going to be pretty easy to do. So now we fix that. So let's just say, let's put a marker here. And then we got that marker there, so I can go Control Arrow. Not too bad, actually. Not too bad. That is a little questionable, but he kind of moves out of it quickly. So, okay, so it does appear that his eyes are a little lower on his face, but honestly, I think really what I just need to do is let's get the outline on, since that's pretty easy to do. Let me think about this for half a second. Okay, on the Golok layer, so I'm hitting the star key twice so that it solos the Golok layer. Boom. Okay. So what I would do is I would do the following. I would take the Golok layer and I would duplicate it. So it's already parented. And then I would move this to the top of the stack. And then I would actually adjust the line thickness. Like this. You see the line thickness coming in? You're turning up the line thickness and then crank the tint factor to whatever you want it to be. And now that put an outline around Golok. So that's good. Alright, so now what I want to do is go to the Fixes layer. Solo that. And let's go in and give a little bit of delineation here to his garment. So I'm going to hit the D key and just kind of put those lines in there. And then let's just see where it falls apart. Because it's parented to the empty. Boom. That's probably okay. We need to put them in here. So I'm just going to add them. Like so. Again, add them. And then we're going to probably have to 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Cool. That was easy. All right, another tweak. This is the wrong color. If we go back and we look at the earlier shots, it's more red. Okay? So let's fix that. Let's go here and let's brighten it up, probably to about there, I would say. And then we'll simply drag, control drag that color over to there so it affects the outlines as well. Actually, can we maybe cheat a bit here by giving him darker outlines? Yes, we can do that. The only problem is that affects the overall outline. So I'm going to do the opposite. Actually, I'm going to actually make it a little bit lighter so that we get a negative outline. I'm going to maybe make that a little less. Yes, look at that. We're going to cheat like the dickens. That might be too much. Yeah, that's probably okay. It seems to be thickening that outline though too much. So let's go back here to this layer and probably look at the thickening factor. Maybe tone it down a little bit. Okay, so since we're here and we have nothing better to do, let's render the sucker and see how it looks in the show. Are you from the USA? Yes, sir, I am from the USA. The United States of America. Indiana, the state of Indiana. That's where I'm from. Where are you from? Ashnan Banutipan. I'm just completely guessing by the spelling of your name that probably in the somewhere maybe in the I'm just guessing India, Pakistan type of location maybe. Where you at? Okay, this is looking quite good actually. The only thing that's really lacking is some post-production tweakage that we could do pretty easily in Krita or even OpenToonz. Well, I should say Tahoma. But let's just keep going here because we're making good progress. Okay. Yeah, you don't get the nice gradients here. I'm going to actually crank up the saturation on his garment as well. So that should make it disappear. Yep. And so what we want to do is maybe push the saturation out a bit. The overall color is probably not too bad. Good. What about his skin? Is his skin color okay? Let's find out. It's a little muted. It's a little muted. Let's go here and let's see what happens. Oh boy, that doesn't work at all. That doesn't work at all. That's probably okay. We don't really have the I'm hitting shift by the way so I can dial this in a bit. Interesting. It's kind of fun to play around a little bit. Oh, you're from the UK. Well, okay. Gotcha. Cool beans. Well, welcome to the live stream, my friend. I've seen you around a few times. What I actually like here is the fact that it almost looks like the skin color makes it look like he's turning red. He's getting a little infuriated, and we can actually massage this a bit in post as well. So I think we'll go with that. That's fine. Let's zip way in here. And I suspect that this is the whites of his eyes. Yes, it is. And we're kind of locked in with that, unfortunately, because of the tint factor. Let's see if we roll this back a little bit. Yep, and then we'll just cut that to the clipboard and do the same thing to the fixes layer. Okay. I wanted to lighten it up a little bit, so I've actually got some latitude for doing some color correction. Not bad, not bad. I'm actually quite liking the way the shot's coming together. Oh, Sri Lanka. Okay. I had a teaching assistant in one of my university courses from Sri Lanka, I remember. Which is pretty crazy because that's going back about 30 years. More than 30 years. That would have been around 1987, 88, actually. 35 years almost. But to us idiot Americans, people from Sri Lanka pretty much sound the same as people from India. I'm sure you don't, but to our ears it sounds pretty close. Because of that thing you get from India, the way they do English, and they reverse their W's and their V's. So everything is very well instead of very well. That's better. Okay. Golik's looking good. Golik is looking good. I'm liking this. I am actually thinking this shot's probably done. I don't think I need to go any further. His characterization's pretty much on. I really think it came out nice. Okay, how would we touch this up? Okay, this is what I would do. There's multiple ways to do it, and I don't want to start stacking layers into Vegas in the timeline. Okay, I could, but I don't really want to. It starts to become unwieldy quickly, so I really want to do it elsewhere. So here's what I'm going to do. I am going to first make sure I've got my work saved over here. Yep, we'll savey. We'll keep Golik around just in case. And now what I want to do is create a new scene. And I'm going to actually import the whole bloody thing from 169. Okay? So this is what I'm showing you right now is one way to do rapid fire adjustments in color and tone to your shot in Krita. You could do the same thing in Blender, but you'd have to create a gradient. Same problem with Tahoma, actually. You'd have to do it through the node-based compositing, which means you have to paint the changes and then see how they render. Whereas in Krita, we can see it all happen together at the same time. So it's a small advantage, but it is an advantage. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to import animation frames. Okay? And I want to add images, and where am I going to go? I'm going to go to 169. Okay? So let's go to 169. There it is. And let's grab the whole kit and caboodle. So I'm going Control A, and I'm going to say, yeah, bring it all in. Now this is going to have a big memory footprint. You can see it up at the top of the screen. Now that's interesting. It looks like what I rendered out of Blender was actually done at 1280 by 720. Okay. Well, it just goes to show that it doesn't matter. So I think the simplest solution right now is to just redo this. So I'm going to go File, New, and instead of doing a standard HD, I'm going to do Dave's HD, which is Broadcast HD. And I'm just going to do the same operation again. Let's import the animation frames, add images. We're already in the right location, and we bring them in. Boom. Okay, again, memory footprint should be smaller now by about a third. So it's only 300 megabytes. Okay. Well, if that's the case, I am going to resave 169 right now. File, Save As, Boink 169. Ping. And I'm also saving it as a Krita file. Now, if you really were worried about your memory footprint, what you could do here in Krita is, what you would do is you're looking for a frame that doesn't change. Like right there. Okay, when I got to this frame, nothing changed. So then I hit Shift, and I go forward until something does change again. And then I hit Shift Control X, and I get rid of those intermediate keyframes. They're not needed because they're duplicates. Okay? It's not always necessary to do this, but you can. It takes a couple minutes, and it will, you will see, if you look up here, you will see the memory footprint just steadily going down as you delete frames that are redundant. Okay? Now, I'm not going to finish doing that because at less than 300 megabytes, there's not really a good reason to. So I'm going to add another layer, and now what we're going to do is do the same thing we were doing on the other shots and just do some paint work. Okay, so I'm going to hit the B key and use my airbrush, and all I'm going to do is just paint in some of this little nice gradient stuff, a little bit up here too to sort of frame in the shot, sort of a vignette kind of idea. And then it's not unusual to sort of mix and match. Like this is in normal mode. I'm going to add another duplicate of it in overlay mode so that it actually kicks up the saturation a bit, as you can see. And then we'll just ease in that again. And I would say, you know what? Not too bad, not too bad. Over here, I'm feeling like I want just a little more. I'm going to turn the opacity down so I can really ease it in. Just a little bit there. Okay. Not bad. Not bad at all. Alright, so I'm going to save this, and then let's just render it. Now, in Krita, when it imports in animation frames, Amar's letting us know that he's back. Cool. Okay, when Krita imports animation frames, it's quite literally copying them into your shot. It's not referencing them on the hard drive. Therefore, we can render back over the image sequence that we brought in. Okay? So this is 81 frames, and we'll give it a little bit of breathing room. So we'll call it 90. So we'll just go here. We'll do 90 frames, and then we're going to, and by the way, I like that. I like the way it comes into the light. I think that's pretty cool. It feels like it might be a little bit, we're losing it a little bit. So I'll tell you what I'm going to do is, I'm just going to go on this layer and hit Control Insert. This layer, Control Insert. So I'm putting keys on there so that when he lands, boom, right there. Yeah, right there. Let's just dial a little bit of that back in. Yep, little bit of overlay. Little bit of darkening. No big deal. Okay, that's fine. So we'll save our work again, and now we're going to just overwrite the old one. Render. The caveat here is that we need to use an underscore instead of a period. So we're going to 169 underscore. And what should happen is Krita complains, and it does. And now we're literally overwriting that whole image sequence that we shot out of Blender. And when we come back here, ta-da, everything updates accordingly. Looking good. I'm liking the balance between the shots. It's feeling pretty nice. Ooh, that was abrupt. That was abrupt. Yeah, look at that. That's not good. And pretty much probably put them about there. Something like that. And actually, let me see. I think that might have worked. Yeah, you don't even see it now. Of course, that was at 24 frames a second. So let's be a little careful here. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. And boom. Yeah, I think now it's acceptable. It could be, what it felt like to me was that it probably needed to happen even one frame earlier. Nope. Nope, wrong. Because the same problem happened where, because he was not in motion yet, you noticed it. See, there you don't notice it. That's amazing. All right, save our work and render. And we're done with that shot. Boom. Golik, you're good to go. Okay, let's keep rocking. How we doing on our time? We're pushing 3 hours. So thus far, we've tightened up 1, 2. Technically, this one doesn't count because it was already in the show. Neither does this one. Obviously, we did all that chopping. We did that shot. So in terms of what we've fixed up, wow, 42 seconds. So we're pushing the 30-second range. We're doing okay here. Okay, so now the dialogue situation's kind of interesting. Golik says, "Stolen? How dare you? You will leave now and return to this court at your peril." Okay, and then what Asher says is this truly your will, Majesty? Or is this your will, Majesty? Or is Golik truly our king? So that was a snarky comment. This is where Asher actually made a mistake. He actually offended the king. And what we're going to do, we're going to insert, when he says this line, this is a very, very, very combative line, if you will. So when he says that line, what we're going to do is we're going to insert a shot of the soldiers that are standing by, silently, just kind of raising an eyebrow like, whoa, what is that dude saying to the king? Because what happens is Asher puts the king in a very awkward position where he needs to do something about it. He doesn't want this shot. I definitely do not prefer that angle, so I'm kind of glad that we don't need to come back to it. I'm going to get rid of that. I'm going to get rid of this by going remove frames and pull. Okay. At this point, he would be looking at Golik. Okay, so fine. We'll give him basically a second and a half to get into character, and what I need to look at is what shot we're doing here. This is 170, which by the way also came out of Blender. File, save as. We're going to go 170. Ping. Yep. And we are saving it as a Krita file. Alright. Let's get Asher in motion here. Actually, let's do the G key. Well, let's just sample that. B key. Not too bad. Okay, we'll give him half a second. And we're going to do the following. We are going to first ditch, we'll give him a blink. He needs to have a blink because he's going to shift his eye direction here. And I think we need to have him raise his eyebrows a bit as well. So let's get this in here. And then I guess we'll give it a slow blink because he's kind of got a little bit of a, there's a melancholy attitude, but the acting here is going to be pretty delicate. This is a, Case of Asher getting a little ahead of himself. All right, let me see here. A key, let's do a little bit of a liquefy here. Come on, I'm hitting the shift key. And, well, I suppose the way we'll do this is to make it small. Okay, that's better. And then we'll deal with his eyebrows in a moment. Boom, B key. That keyframe of the mouth should actually be deleted. Or maybe replaced with that one. And now what we're going to do is we're going to actually just animate his eyebrows. Oops. And we'll give it probably usually about 3 keys is what you want for something like this. So we're going to go like so. We'll deal with patching it shortly. No big deal. No big deal. Alright, and I'm actually going to go further. This isn't going to make sense yet. But once we get the dialogue in, this will make sense. This one probably needs a little massage here. And just for fun, I'll take it even further and see if that's too much. It's a cartoon. It'll probably look fine. Okay. Alright, so now what we'll do is we'll just make sure the motion looks okay. There's nothing really egregious jumping out. And then if so, we'll go ahead and do the patching to make it look right. Yep, that's okay. It's probably happening a little too fast. I mean, so I'm going to go to there. Then I'm going to hit Alt, move these guys downstream, and then this is almost surely going to want to be much slower. I'm saying actually the opposite of what I mean. It needs to happen more quickly, so it's not slower. What I'm trying to say is less keyframes. Less keyframes means it actually happens faster. Okay, this one doesn't work. And there's not enough of a change there to justify it, so probably those 3 keys. Yep, that's it. Okay. So we are on 170. Let's save our work. And I will take half a second here and check and see if there's anything interesting going on in the chat and blah blah. No, everybody's just kind of hanging out. Okay, cool. So now he says,
Is that your will?
gotta check and see if he says Majesty. Yeah, he says Will Majesty, so.
Is that your will?
I'm actually gonna just smack that in there. I think that'll work.
Is that your will, Majesty?
Yep. Or is Golek truly our king? Or is Golek truly our king? Alright, we don't have enough frames. Let's go to 80. Boom, boom. Save our work. Now, in the head replacement, I'm actually going to try something. I'm going to try a little experiment here in the head replacement this way. I'm going to actually add another layer. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit the G key and sample this color. And then I'm just going to draw a lasso around this whole region so that color comes in behind it. And look at what that did. Not quite perfect. Not quite perfect, but because it has no keyframes, I'm not adding animation keys here. I'm just it's just going to make an adjustment in the existing picture. So what that should do, it fixed the whole thing, right? So now I can take the head and hit Control E to bake that down. And then I'm going to do the opposite here. I'm going to add a layer on top because right there I'm seeing a little bit of an issue. So I'm going to go Insert and right there. See it? Do you see it? That's interesting. Yeah, actually, yeah, I mean, that kind of works. I'll go with it. Alright, so this is going to be that color. And we'll just kind of smack in some. Let's see if that kind of sort of works. It all goes by pretty quick, so should be okay. Yep, so we're just going to touch it up. Touch it up. What you eating over there, baby? Oh, thought I smelled something. Oh yeah, I actually didn't fix the thing I set out to fix. Silly goose. Which was that. There we go. Boom. 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 Little fixes. No big deal. Whoopsie poo. Wrong color there, Jack. What was the other thing I was seeing? I was seeing something. There's really, really, really tiny color variations here, but I don't think it's anything you would ever notice. What I am going to do, however... Oh, come on. Come on. Is hit the brush and replace that. Come on, baby. And I think, just to keep things simple, I'm going to bake that down. And then what I want to do is insert an eye blink here. G key, boom. Those eye blinks are quite useful. Boom. Boom. Okay, N key. Yeah, I think we're okay here. Let's jump out, save our work, get ready to, which we want to look at the contents of the folder. Pretty sure This was originally done in Blender, which means the file names are going to have an underscore. Yes. And so we're going to go here. Let's render this baby out and see how it goes. Getting a little hard to see there. So I'm doing it on the other screen. 170. 170. And there it's going to save over it. But I actually already pulled it out of the show. Therefore, scene 170, render 80 frames, rock and roll, baby. 8 frames a second. And we'll come up here to 170. There it is. Pop that. Okay, that is 175. Okay. Dave can't see. Dave is blind, apparently. Control Z. Let's just hit Control Z. There's what we were looking for. Sorry. Disable resampling. Drag that in. Save that. Okay. He says stolen wealth is no wealth at all. Stolen? How dare you? You will leave now and return to this court at your peril. Is this your will, Majesty? Or is Golik truly our king? Ooh. Ooh. Wrong thing to say. Wrong thing to say, people. And what we're going to do now is we're going to add another shot here to really sew up the attitude. Here's how we're going to do it. If we go way, way, way back here in the show, way back to the first time Asher ever showed up at the palace, you had these two guards. So we're going to open up 140 and we're going to do a new version of 140. File, open. I'm sorry, I said 140. I meant 040. 040. There it is. Pop that open. And we are going to repurpose this shot as... Where are we? As 170B. File, save as. We're going to save this as 170-B. Yep. Okay. Now, this shot's kind of interesting. We've already got the... I say we have both of these guys do the... Yeah, so what I'm going to do is take the soldiers and I'm going to give them 1 second to respond. So, yeah. And so what we're going to do is we're going to have them both open their eyes. Boom. Let's do this brush. Hit the N key so we're actually seeing what we're supposed to be seeing here. G key. I'm going to actually do this. Let this guy raise his eyebrow a bit. So it's boom. Yeah, that's all it's going to take. And then what we'll do is we'll also have this guy half a second later. He's going to look off in that direction. So we'll go like this, hit the B key. And then just for kicks and giggles, let's grab this and grab this. Move him down a little bit, and then let's just do this the hard way. Let's just patch it now. No big deal. I've found that this is extremely quick and stupidly accurate most of the time in terms of getting the result you're after. Just move stuff to where it needs to be and then deal with patching it up to make it look good. There it is. So there's our shot, I think. Yeah, with the slight caveat that his eyes are hard to see. Let me go. N key. Actually, maybe not. Maybe not. All right. Did I see a flaw there? I thought I saw a flaw there. Yep, I did. There's the flaw. Okay, so B key. All right, that's it. So that's shot 170B. We're going to take, I guess what we'll do is we'll render this as 170-B, 170-B, period. And, whoa, 72 frames? I don't think so. 24 is all we need. Boom. 3 seconds. It's probably long, actually. So, we'll change that to 24 and resave our shot. Come back here. As usual, do this. Clean the media pool. Just keep things clean. And we're going for 170B. There it is. There it is. There it is. And 8 frames a second. And you will find that I'm pretty sure we're going to see that this little addition will really drive home the shot, because it tells us a lot about what's going on with the people dynamics here.
Is this your will, Majesty? Or is Golek truly our king?
Okay, so this is going to be boom. Yeah, so what I'm going to do is, by the way, I want to check something here. Yeah, disable resampling. Then what we're going to do is actually take this and we're going to speed it up. No, even more. I really want to make that tight. Little bit longer. Quick but long. Boom. Okay, it repeated, so sorry about that. Okay, and then what we'll do is we'll modify the king so that when when we go to him, his eyes are going to pop open and he's going to notice. He's going to kind of look around and kind of get he's going to take the pulse of the room, and he realizes if you're going to be a strong king, you can't let someone speak to you that way, and he's going to have to do something about it, which of course he does by echoing Golek's sentiment and banishing Asher from the court. Looks like I haven't missed too much. Soda Pop's here. Hey, Soda Pop. Doing a bunch of stuff today, so much in and out, blah, blah, blah. So stoked about the new 1.9 Affinity updates. And now the sale too. Blows Adobe out of the frame to me. Kill. But as for me, boring little me, I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing, which is just keep rocking and rolling with Krita and Tahoma, and occasionally Blender, as we did today, and have nothing but fun doing so, except when the software crashes, which of course it did today as well. Check something here. Yeah, I mean, by the way, the flaw in this shot is that both soldiers react, And so they're competing for your attention. You can't actually look at this guy's eyes and this guy's eyes at the same time. So in that sense, this is a weak shot. This shot would be better if it was either framed this way or this way. I would say probably, yeah, I'm thinking if we're going to do this, we don't want to see that guy at all. So let's just push that as far as we can, and I'll bet you that makes it stronger. Go like truly our king. Hmm? Yeah. And just for fun, let's see what happens if we actually take this key here, smack it out to here. This is, I don't normally do this type of thing, but what if we went from here? Yeah, let's move this downstream. I like it. I actually like it quite well. The only problem is it doesn't stretch out long enough. Boom, boom, and then we need this last frame. So, save our work, file, save. Okay, I understand that, Dave. Krita Tahoma2D is really all you need. Well, so far, you know, so far. I don't know what affinity is either. So I'm going to go to 170B. Got to hit the F5 here and refresh this file browser. I want the last frame of this. Actually, you know what? You know what would be better? What would be much better is stretch this out to 36 and redo it. So let's just do this. Yeah, let's just add a bunch of frames. And then let's see here. Well, yes and no. I mean, the problem is I'm going to have to re-import this, which means I'm going to lose the... Let me see. Let me try something. Select this in Project Media List, and now I want to look at its properties. I don't think I have a way to extend the length of the image sequence once it's in the show, unfortunately. It's kind of a bummer. What if I re-import it this way? Let's see what happens. We'll import it twice and see what happens. It didn't affect that one. So now what I'm going to do, okay, yeah, it's in there twice. So what we're going to do is this. We're going to pull this into the show, and we're going to take this, Control C, and we're going to copy its properties over to here, then delete this one. Yep. That did the trick. Now we've got the length we need, and let's clean the media pool so that the 24 frame version is gone. Okay, so now we get boom, bop, right there. Yeah, just about right on the length, just about right. Okay, so I like that. Holy cow, that's great. So then the king has to respond. So that's it. Perfect replacement for Photoshop and Illustrator that's non-destructive, and Affinity Photo and Designer is only 25 bucks. It's cool. Sounds like all kinds of fun. All right, that's it for me. I am ducking out. It's been 3.5 hours, and we've gotten a lot done. Highly suggested for people who like the Photoshop workflow. Yeah, and I tell you, when I want... I mean, the most... I mean, I'm a GIMP guy. I've been using GIMP for 20 years, and if GIMP had animation, I'd probably be using GIMP. It's got certainly as powerful of a brush engine as Krita, and it's had it for years. I mean, GIMP is super capable, and GIMP handles really big files way, way better than Krita does. So there's that. But Yeah, GIMP is actually super powerful. I wish they had animation in GIMP. They kind of have the gap thing, but it's basically useless for the kind of thing I'm doing. So anyway, that's it for me. I'm checking out. Thanks for hanging out. And as you guys know,